Guard loses patience when lady approaches the horse. Mist clung gently to the stone pathways, curling around the wooden posts of the stables and the iron rings where horses were tied. It was a quiet morning, unusually calm for a place that usually buzzed with servants, traders, and visitors, yet that calm was deceptive. There was always tension in a castle, especially near the stables, where the prized animals lived. Sir Roland stood near the stables, his posture straight, shoulders squared, and eyes scanning the courtyard with the attention of a man who had spent decades guarding the castle and its inhabitants. Every sound, every movement, no matter how small, was recorded in his mind. The soft clap of hooves against cobblestones, the swish of a tail, the distant crowing of a rooster, all of it was part of his world, part of the rhythm of his life. He had learned to notice things others would miss. The way a horse's ears flicked at the sound of approaching footsteps, the slight tension in a stable door hinge, the way shadows shifted in the early light. Today, however, Sir Roland was not just standing guard. Today he was on edge. The castle's prized stallion, Thunder, had been brought in only a week ago, and the young horse was not yet accustomed to the bustle of the castle. Thunder's coat was a deep chestnut, with a mane that gleamed in the sunlight and muscles that rippled beneath his skin with every step. Horses like him were rare, delicate, and spirited. He had been trained for speed and endurance, yet he was young enough to be unpredictable. Anyone who did not know him could easily startle him. One wrong move, one sudden approach, could lead to injury, not just for the horse but for the person too. Sir Roland had strict orders. No one was to come near Thunder without his supervision. Not the servants, not the squires, not even the visiting nobles unless specifically instructed. Thunder needed time to adjust, time to trust, and above all, space. Sir Roland had seen far too many incidents where curiosity and carelessness had led to a horse panicking. He had been in enough scrapes in his life to know that even the most careful people could underestimate the intelligence and power of a horse. As he adjusted the strap on his leather gauntlet, he glanced at the stable doors, making sure they were latched properly. The early morning light reflected off the polished wood, casting long shadows across the courtyard. The smell of oats mixed with hay, and somewhere in the distance, a bucket tipped over, spilling water across the cobblestones with a soft splash. Sir Roland's eyes flicked to the sound, noting that it was just the stable boy carrying out his morning chores. His gaze returned to Thunder, who was moving slowly in his stall, nostrils flaring and ears flicking back and forth as if listening to invisible sounds. The young horse shifted nervously, pawing at the straw beneath his feet. He had not yet been handled much by the castle staff, and every new face or sound made him tense. His eyes were bright, intelligent, and alert, full of energy and curiosity, but also caution. Sir Roland knew this horse required patience and respect. He had been instructed to supervise the horse closely and ensure that no one approached in a way that might frighten him. Roland shifted slightly, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle over him. Guarding the stables was not glamorous work. It did not involve sitting in the sun watching banners flutter in the wind or participating in grand ceremonies. It was work of vigilance, patience, and constant observation. The castle's guards often joked that the stables were the most dangerous place of all because of the unpredictability of the animals. A horse could be loyal, gentle, and calm one moment, and then panic without warning the next. That made the work both challenging and important. As he watched Thunder, Sir Roland's mind wandered slightly to his own past. He remembered the first horse he had ever trained and the lessons he had learned the hard way. Horses responded to respect, to calm voices and gentle hands, but they also demanded alertness. One careless motion could be disastrous. He had seen knights thrown violently from saddles, apprentices kicked for daring to approach too quickly, and servants trampled for underestimating a horse's strength. He had promised himself years ago that he would never let such an accident happen on his watch. That promise had become part of his identity. The courtyard, though quiet, was not empty. A few stable hands moved about, carrying buckets of water or bundles of fresh straw. A servant swept the cobblestones, and the sound of the broom against the stones created a soft rhythm. Birds began to chirp from the trees nearby, welcoming the new day. Despite all this activity, the air was peaceful, and the mist still lingered, softening the edges of the castle walls and giving everything a dreamlike quality. It was the perfect morning for calm observation, and Sir Roland took advantage of it, using the time to check every detail, every corner and every crevice of the courtyard. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching from the main entrance. They were light, careful, and deliberate, the sort of steps that belonged to someone who moved with grace. Sir Roland's eyes narrowed slightly. He had not expected visitors this early, and his instincts told him to be cautious. From experience, he knew that even the gentlest of footsteps could signal someone unaware of the rules, someone who might get too close to Thunder without realizing the danger. He adjusted his stance, placing one hand on the hilt of his sword, not because he expected trouble, but because it was habit. Years of guarding had trained him to prepare for the unexpected. His eyes scanned the approaching figure. The light revealed a young woman walking calmly, almost as if she were part of the morning mist itself. She carried herself with elegance, her dress simple but fine, and a faint smile on her lips suggested a gentle curiosity. Sir Roland studied her carefully. She had the appearance of a noblewoman, unfamiliar with the ways of the stables but confident in her steps. His mind raced through possibilities. Was she here to inspect the horses, to speak with the master of the stables, or simply wandering out of curiosity? Whatever the reason, he knew his duty, to protect Thunder above all else. He had seen how well-meaning people could provoke fear in a young horse without meaning any harm at all. He inhaled slowly, steadying himself, and prepared to step forward if necessary. Thunder had lifted his head at the sound of footsteps, ears pricked, eyes wide. The horse's muscles were tense beneath his coat, ready to spring if startled. Sir Roland's heart beat steadily as he prepared to intervene if needed. This morning might seem peaceful to an outsider, but to someone who knew the horse as he did, it was full of potential danger. The young woman stopped a few paces from the stable doors, her gaze turning toward Thunder. She knelt slightly, as if to get a better look, and ran her hand over the horse's glossy coat. Sir Roland's patience began to strain. His body tensed as he reminded himself that the rules existed for a reason. He took another step forward, his voice ready to speak, though he hoped she would notice him before he had to raise it. The sun had risen fully now, scattering the mist and casting warm light across the courtyard. The castle walls glowed in golden tones, and shadows retreated. It was a beautiful morning, yet for Sir Roland, every beautiful detail was secondary to the horse he protected. He knew the calm could end in an instant. Thunder could react, the noblewoman could react, and the result could be catastrophic. And so, Sir Roland remained vigilant, ready for whatever would happen next, knowing that his duty required both patience and alertness, that the peace of the morning was fragile, and that one wrong step could change everything. The first hint of movement caught Sir Roland's sharp eyes. From the castle gates, a figure emerged, walking with a grace that seemed almost deliberate, as though each step had been carefully measured to avoid disturbing the quiet morning. The sunlight glinted off her hair, golden strands framing her face, and the soft fabric of her dress flowed with each step, brushing lightly against the cobblestones. She carried herself with a confidence that suggested she belonged in the castle, yet there was a curiosity in her gaze, an innocent eagerness that immediately drew Sir Roland's attention. He straightened slightly, hands resting lightly on his belt as he observed her. Every part of him told him to be alert. Thunder, the stallion, had shifted in his stall, nostrils flaring, ears twitching at the sound of approaching footsteps. The horse was young, spirited, and unpredictable, and Sir Roland knew better than anyone that a sudden movement or an unfamiliar presence could startle him. He had spent years learning to read horses. Every twitch of a tail, every flick of an ear, every subtle shift of weight could signal anxiety or aggression. Thunder's movements were small but deliberate, and Sir Roland's experience made him uneasy. The woman continued toward the stables without noticing him, her eyes fixed on the magnificent chestnut horse inside. Her lips parted slightly, a soft smile playing across them as she admired the animal's strong neck and glistening coat. She reached out, her hand moving carefully, almost hesitantly, as if she didn't want to scare him. Sir Roland's chest tightened. He knew that even the gentlest touch, if unexpected, could cause a young horse to panic. He took a small step forward, ready to intervene, his voice ready to issue a warning. "Wait, milady," he called, his tone firm but not harsh, hoping she would notice him before moving any closer. Thunder's ears flicked in his direction, and the horse shifted slightly, the muscles in his legs tensing beneath the smooth coat. The young woman paused, looking toward the voice, and for the first time she saw Sir Roland standing there, tall and imposing in his guard uniform. His eyes were fixed on her, not with anger but with the intensity of someone who took his duty seriously. "Oh," she said softly, almost apologetically, stepping back a little. Her hands lifted slightly, not in surrender but in a gesture of respect. "I didn't mean to." Sir Roland held up a hand, cutting off her words. "Please, milady, do not approach him yet. He is young and easily startled. He could." His words faltered for a moment as he struggled to convey the seriousness without frightening her. Thunder shifted again, pawing at the straw, his nostrils flaring, sensing the tension in the air. The woman studied him for a moment, curiosity evident in her eyes, as though she were trying to understand why a man would speak so urgently about a horse. "I only wanted to see him," she said gently, her voice calm, almost musical in the quiet morning. "I didn't mean to frighten him, or you." Sir Roland exhaled slowly, trying to calm the rising tension in his chest. It was not anger that had made his tone sharp, but concern. Years of experience had taught him that horses, especially young stallions, responded not only to physical threats but to emotions. A person's anxiety, frustration, or impatience could transmit to the horse in an instant. Thunder was alert, and his instincts had already picked up the caution in the guard's voice. Sir Roland knew that if he did not act carefully, the stallion might bolt or react unpredictably. "Approach carefully," he said, lowering his hand but keeping his posture firm. "Do not make sudden movements, speak softly and let him see your hands. Horses understand gestures more than words." His voice was steady now, calm but commanding, and his eyes did not leave the young woman or the horse. The woman nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I understand. I will be careful." She adjusted the sleeve of her dress, smoothing it over her arm, and took a small, deliberate step closer, stopping just short of the stallion's reach. Thunder tilted his head, nostrils flaring, eyes bright with curiosity and caution. He lowered his ears slightly, a subtle sign of distrust, yet did not move away. Sir Roland watched every tiny shift in posture, ready to react if the stallion showed signs of fear or agitation. "You have a fine horse," she said softly, almost to herself, her gaze lingering on the powerful muscles beneath Thunder's coat. "He is magnificent." "Yes," Sir Roland replied, his voice quieter now, though still firm. "He is one of the finest young stallions in the region." But fine horses are sensitive. They require patience and respect, not force. One wrong step, one sudden motion, and even the gentlest horse can act unpredictably. The young woman smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting admiration and understanding. "I see," she said. "I will not do anything to upset him." She reached her hand slowly toward the horse again, keeping it low, palm open. Thunder sniffed the air, nostrils twitching as he tried to read the situation. His hooves shifted slightly, pawing at the straw beneath him, but he did not pull back. Sir Roland's eyes narrowed slightly, his tension easing but not disappearing entirely. He had seen horses act calm one moment and unpredictable the next. "Do you know his name?" the woman asked, keeping her voice soft and gentle. "Thunder," Sir Roland said, his tone a mixture of pride and caution. "He is young but spirited. He responds well to kindness and patience, but he can be dangerous if startled. That is why I must be cautious." The woman nodded slowly. "I understand. He will not be startled by me. I only wish to admire him." She smiled again, a warm, reassuring expression that seemed to reach even to the young stallion. Thunder shifted slightly, nostrils flaring, yet his ears moved forward, showing curiosity. Sir Roland exhaled, tension easing further. He could see that the woman's calm energy was helping the horse to relax. For a few moments they stood quietly, the soft morning light illuminating the courtyard. Birds chirped in the trees, a bucket tipped slightly and spilled water with a soft splash, and the gentle rustling of leaves added a sense of peace to the scene. Yet beneath the calm surface, the tension remained palpable. Sir Roland's instincts told him that the situation could change in an instant, but for now, there was a fragile harmony between the young noblewoman and the stallion. She reached out her hand again, this time allowing her fingers to brush lightly against Thunder's smooth coat. The horse lifted his head slightly, sniffing her hand, nostrils flaring, yet did not move away. Sir Roland stepped slightly closer, his eyes never leaving the interaction. "Steady," he murmured almost to himself. "Keep steady." The woman laughed softly, a light musical sound. "He is cautious," she said. "Just like me, it seems." Sir Roland could not help but allow a small smile to tug at the corners of his lips. She was gentle, respectful and careful, exactly what was needed for a horse like Thunder. Yet even as he observed, a small knot of tension remained in his chest. Years of guarding had taught him that caution was never wasted. "Do not forget," he said quietly, "even the kindest horse can react in an instant. Watch him carefully and do not make sudden movements. Respect him and he will respect you." The young woman nodded, keeping her hand still against Thunder's coat. "I understand. Thank you for watching over him. I can see why you are so careful." Sir Roland's eyes softened slightly, but he did not relax completely. "It is my duty. I have seen too many accidents to ignore caution. You are fortunate that he is responding well to your calm energy, but always be mindful. Patience is key." The young woman smiled warmly, appreciating his dedication. "I will remember," she said. "He is beautiful and I will treat him with care." Thunder shifted again, pawing gently at the straw, nostrils twitching, yet remaining calm under the watchful eyes of both the guard and the noblewoman. For a few moments, silence settled over the courtyard, broken only by the soft sounds of the morning. Sir Roland observed carefully, knowing that the balance of calm and caution was delicate. The young woman's gentle presence had helped, but he remained alert. Thunder, curious but cautious, allowed her to admire him, and for the first time, Sir Roland felt a small sense of relief. The morning sun climbed higher, scattering the mist and illuminating the courtyard with a warm glow. The light caught the horse's coat, making it gleam like polished wood. Sir Roland continued to watch, his eyes flicking between the horse and the young woman. Every subtle movement mattered, every gesture could influence the stallion's reaction. And so, the scene remained a delicate dance of patience, respect, and careful observation, the kind that only someone with years of experience could truly understand. The young woman's curiosity had not caused chaos, yet Sir Roland knew that the moment of calm was fragile. One misstep, one sudden movement, and everything could change. The morning sunlight had now fully spread across the castle courtyard, illuminating every corner and casting long shadows behind the stables. The warmth of the sun contrasted sharply with the tension building in Sir Rowland's chest. He had tried to remain calm, to guide the young noblewoman gently, and to ensure that Thunder, the stallion, felt secure. But every careful step she took toward the horse, every small movement, sent little pulses of unease through him. He had learned long ago that even the slightest hesitation or misstep could result in disaster. The young woman, Lady Eleanor, seemed unaware of the intensity behind Sir Rowland's watchful eyes. Her gaze was fixed entirely on Thunder, admiring the way the morning light danced on his glossy coat. She knelt slightly, reaching out her hand to touch the horse's neck, and for a moment everything appeared calm. Thunder sniffed her hand, nostrils flaring, but made no sudden move. His muscles tensed and relaxed in rhythm with her gentle touch, and Sir Rowland allowed himself a measured breath. Yet, beneath that calm, the tension remained. Sir Rowland's instincts had been honed over decades. He had seen horses spook over shadows, birds, and even the softest sound of fabric brushing against a wall. He had witnessed people approach them with the kindest intentions, only to be thrown backward or trampled. Every step Lady Eleanor took reminded him of that, and each movement made his patience fray ever so slightly. He stepped a little closer, voice calm but firm. "Milady, please move slowly. Do not startle him. One sudden movement can frighten him." Eleanor paused, turning to meet his gaze. Her eyes held a mixture of curiosity and mild surprise, as though she did not fully understand the severity of the warning. "I am being careful," she said softly. "I mean no harm, I promise." Sir Rowland's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe her, and a part of him did. But experience had taught him that good intentions alone were never enough. The horse's ears twitched backward, nostrils flaring, and his tail swished in small, impatient movements. Rowland's hand hovered near his belt, not for aggression but as a habitual precaution. Thunder's size, strength, and unpredictability made vigilance essential. "Milady," he said again, his voice rising slightly, a warning carried in its tone, "you must stay still. Do not reach suddenly, do not lean too close. He is not used to strangers, and any sudden motion could startle him." Eleanor blinked at him, a flicker of understanding crossing her face, but the next moment she leaned just a little closer, brushing her fingers lightly over Thunder's mane. Sir Rowland felt a sharp spike of alarm in his chest. He opened his mouth to speak, but she had not noticed his quick intake of breath. The horse shifted suddenly, pawing at the ground, and let out a small snort. "Step back," Sir Rowland barked, his patience cracking. The sharpness in his voice startled Eleanor, and she instinctively took a small step backward. Thunder startled as well, ears pinned for a brief moment, and he stepped sideways, nostrils flaring. The energy of the courtyard shifted immediately. What had been calm moments before now hummed with tension. I'm sorry," Eleanor said, her voice gentle but edged with surprise. She raised her hand slightly in a gesture of apology, not moving closer again. Her eyes, however, held a hint of worry for both herself and the horse, sensing the intensity of the guard's reaction. Sir Rowland's face reddened slightly, not with anger at her, but with frustration at the situation. "Milady," he said, his tone steadier but still firm, "I must insist. Do not approach him any closer. He is a spirited stallion, unaccustomed to strangers. You may mean no harm, but any sudden movement could put you in danger and him." The words were precise, but Sir Rowland could feel his patience wearing thinner. Years of guarding horses had taught him that calm guidance was necessary, yet the fear of potential accident could turn even the steadiest man into one who spoke with sharpness. He took a measured step forward, ensuring the space between the horse and the young woman remained safe. Eleanor looked at him, curiosity mingling with concern. "I understand," she said softly. "I will not do anything to frighten him. I only wanted to admire him." Her voice was calm, soothing, and it seemed to carry an unintended effect. Thunder's ears twitched forward, nostrils flaring gently as though sensing her calm energy, but Sir Roland's tension did not ease. He knew that a horse could remain calm for only a moment before reacting to the slightest perceived threat. Thunder shifted again, pawing at the straw with more energy this time. The noblewoman moved her hand just a fraction closer to his neck, and Roland's breath caught. "Milady," he said again, louder this time, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "I warned you, please do not move closer, step back." Elinor froze, startled by the volume and sharpness of his tone. Thunder snorted again, his body tense, ready to react to the slightest motion. Roland's patience, which had been holding for the sake of decorum, finally snapped. He had tried gentle guidance, reminders, and warnings. Now he had no choice but to assert himself firmly. "You must listen," he said, his voice echoing slightly against the stone walls. "Step back and do not touch him unless I say so." His tone left no room for argument. It was a voice forged from years of responsibility, vigilance, and experience, and it carried the weight of authority that could not be ignored. Elinor's eyes widened, and she took a small step backward, hands raised as if to show she meant no harm. I am sorry," she murmured, her voice small but sincere. "I did not know it would frighten him." Roland's shoulders relaxed slightly, though his eyes never left the horse. "It is not your fault," he said, softer now, though still firm. "You mean well, but this is a young stallion. He is strong and he can be dangerous if startled. You must understand that my words are not meant to scare you but to protect you and him." Elinor nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "I understand," she said quietly. "I see now why you must be so careful." Her gaze lingered on Thunder, whose muscles had begun to relax slightly under the careful supervision of Sir Roland, though his eyes remained alert. Sir Roland exhaled slowly, trying to regain his own composure. The surge of tension that had gripped him in the last few moments left a residue, a reminder of how quickly a peaceful situation could become dangerous. He took a step closer to the horse, resting a hand lightly on the stallion's neck to reassure him. Thunder leaned slightly into the touch, nostrils flaring, ears flicking forward in cautious acceptance. "Do you see now?" Roland said quietly to Elinor, keeping his voice calm. "Even the gentlest action must be measured. Horses are not machines, they are creatures with instincts. They feel fear, curiosity, and caution. You must respect that." The young woman nodded, eyes meeting his with understanding and a hint of admiration. "I see," she said softly. "I will respect him. Thank you for keeping him safe, and for warning me." Sir Roland allowed a small, approving nod. He had regained some control over the situation, but his mind remained alert. The calm of the courtyard was fragile, and one misstep could undo the peace that had been so carefully maintained. Thunder had returned to a calmer stance, pawing gently at the straw, but he remained watchful, ears flicking and eyes bright. For a few moments, silence settled over the courtyard. The warm sunlight reflected off the polished stone, highlighting the chestnut coat of the stallion. Birds chirped in the trees, and a distant breeze rustled the leaves. Yet beneath the calm, the memory of near tension lingered. Roland knew the moment had been a test, not just of Thunder's temperament, but of the young woman's ability to follow guidance. She had shown patience and understanding, but the lesson was not forgotten. "Patience," he murmured almost to himself, as much a reminder to himself as to her. "Patience and respect. That is the key to handling any horse, no matter how fine or spirited." Elinor tilted her head slightly, curious. "You have spent many years with horses, haven't you?" she asked softly. Roland's lips curved in a small smile. "Yes," he said. "Decades. I have learned that every horse has its own personality. Some are gentle, some spirited, some stubborn, but all require respect. And when you are responsible for them, you must never underestimate their strength or their instincts." The young woman nodded, thoughtful, watching Thunder with renewed care. Sir Roland allowed himself to relax slightly, though vigilance remained. The lesson had been learned for both of them. Respect, patience, and awareness were not just virtues, they were necessities. The morning sun continued to climb, bathing the courtyard in light. The tension had eased, though the memory of the recent alarm lingered, reminding Sir Roland that even calm moments were delicate and required careful attention. Alina remained by the stallion's side, moving with caution and care, while Roland maintained his watchful presence, ensuring that the young noblewoman and the spirited horse remained safe in the delicate balance of trust and respect. The courtyard had settled into a gentle quiet. After the sudden tension earlier, the early morning sun was now fully shining over the castle, casting a warm golden glow across the stone walls and the cobblestones below. Even the mist that had clung to the corners of the courtyard had faded, leaving everything bright and clear. Thunder, the young stallion, was still alert but had begun to relax under Sir Roland's watchful presence. His ears flicked forward in curiosity rather than fear, and the soft rustle of straw beneath his hooves no longer carried the same anxious energy as before. Lady Alina remained near the stallion, kneeling carefully at a safe distance this time, her hand resting lightly on her lap. She observed Thunder quietly, noting the muscles in his neck, the gentle rise and fall of his chest, and the way his eyes seemed to study her just as she studied him. She understood now that her admiration for the horse could not be expressed recklessly. The brief alarm earlier had taught her the value of caution, and she felt a deep respect growing for both the animal and the man who had protected him. Sir Roland stood a few paces away, arms relaxed at his sides, though his eyes never left the two of them. The anger he had felt earlier had faded, replaced by a quiet vigilance. He could see the genuine care in Alina's posture and the way she approached the situation with thoughtfulness. That care was exactly what a horse like Thunder needed to feel safe and begin to trust someone new. Slowly, the tension that had gripped him eased, though the instincts of a lifetime of guarding remained sharp, alert to the slightest misstep. "You have a gentle way about you," Sir Roland said finally, his voice steady but softer than before. Alina looked up at him, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Gentle," she repeated, tilting her head slightly. "Yes," he replied. "Most people approach horses with either fear or overconfidence. You approached him with care. You were patient, and you watched him before moving. That is the way to earn his trust." He took a careful step closer, resting a hand lightly on the stallion's shoulder to reassure him. Thunder leaned slightly into the touch, nostrils flaring softly, but he remained calm, an encouraging sign that the young woman's patience was effective. Alina smiled faintly. "I only wanted to admire him," she said, "but I can see now that admiration alone is not enough. Respect matters more." She glanced at Roland, noting the seriousness in his eyes and the strength in his posture. There was authority there, but it was tempered by experience and a sense of responsibility. She realized that the sharpness in his voice earlier had not been anger toward her, but concern for the safety of both herself and the horse. "Yes," Roland said quietly, "horses are powerful, intelligent creatures. They can sense hesitation, fear, or impatience, and they respond to it. That is why patience is so important. That is why respect is necessary. One misstep can have consequences for both the horse and the person." Alina nodded, her gaze returning to Thunder. "I understand," she said softly. "I think I understand why you were so strict. You care for him deeply, don't you?" Sir Roland allowed a small nod, the first sign of ease in his stern demeanor. "I do," he said. "I have spent many years guarding horses, training them and caring for them. They are not just animals, they are companions, partners. Each one has its own personality, its own instincts. And when you are responsible for them, as I am for Thunder, you must act with vigilance and care at all times." Alina watched him closely, impressed by the depth of his dedication. "It is clear," she said, "that your care has kept him safe, and perhaps even saved him from being frightened earlier." She gestured toward the stallion, who now stood with his head slightly lowered, nostrils softening, muscles relaxed. "He trusts you." "Yes," Roland said quietly, his eyes still on the horse. "He does. Trust must be earned, not assumed. And even when trust is earned, it can be fragile." He exhaled slowly, taking a small step back to give Alina more space. "You have begun to show him that you mean no harm. That is an important first step." Alina extended her hand slowly, holding it low near her side rather than reaching forward. Thunder sniffed the air, nostrils flaring gently, ears flicking forward as he studied her. Roland's eyes never left her hand, ensuring the stallion remained calm. He could see that she was learning quickly, adapting her movements to the needs of the animal. The calm energy she radiated seemed to have a soothing effect on Thunder, and the tension in the courtyard gradually eased further. "You see," Roland said, his tone calm now, "horses are very aware of the world around them. They notice details we often overlook. A twitch of the tail, the direction of the ears, the way they shift their weight, it all tells you how they feel. By observing carefully, you can understand them better than by trying to control them." Alina nodded, her gaze fixed on the horse. "I think I see that now," she said softly. "I will watch him and I will move slowly. I will let him decide when he is comfortable with me." Her voice was gentle, respectful, and Roland could feel the sincerity in it. "Yes," he said, "that is the only way. Force has no place here. Patience, calm, and understanding, that is how a bond is built." He stepped back slightly, giving her the space to continue approaching at her own pace, always under the watchful eyes of both the guard and the horse. Thunder lowered his head slowly, nostrils flaring softly as he observed her hand. He sniffed, then nuzzled it gently, a clear sign of cautious acceptance. Alina smiled, her eyes lighting up with excitement and relief. "He is allowing me," she whispered almost to herself, thrilled by the small gesture of trust. Roland nodded, pleased but still cautious. "Do not rush," he advised. "Even small steps matter. One moment of carelessness can undo what has taken patience to achieve." Alina remained still, letting the horse explore her hand, allowing him to set the pace. She felt a deep connection forming, the kind that only comes when respect and patience are present. Roland watched, silently approving her approach. The tension of the earlier confrontation had completely faded, replaced by a sense of calm understanding. "You see now," Roland said quietly, "why caution is necessary. But you also see that calmness and patience can lead to trust. That is the balance we must maintain." Alina nodded again, her eyes shining with understanding. "Yes," she said, "I can see it now. I will remember this lesson." She gently stroked Thunder's mane, careful not to make sudden movements, and felt the horse relax under her touch. For a while they remained in silence, the quiet only broken by the soft sounds of the stable, the shuffle of straw beneath Thunder's hooves, the distant clatter of buckets, and the gentle rustling of leaves in the morning breeze. Roland observed both the woman and the horse, ensuring that the bond forming was safe and steady. He felt a small sense of satisfaction. The young woman had shown care, patience, and respect, proving she could learn quickly when guided correctly. "You have a good heart," Roland said finally, turning to Alina with a small, approving nod. "You are cautious, thoughtful, and respectful. Those are the qualities a horse senses. You are earning his trust, and that is more important than admiration alone." Alina smiled warmly, a genuine, grateful smile. "Thank you," she said softly. "I never realized how much patience it takes. You were right to warn me earlier." Roland allowed himself a small smile, his stern expression softening. "I was strict, yes. But only because I care about him and you. That is my duty, and I am glad you understand now. That understanding is the most important part." Thunder shifted again, moving closer to Alina in a gentle, trusting gesture. She extended her hand slowly, letting the horse guide the interaction. Roland watched carefully, heart steady but alert, pleased with the cautious progress they had made. The tension that had threatened earlier in the morning had fully dissipated, replaced by mutual respect, understanding, and the beginning of trust. For Sir Roland, mornings like this were rare. The delicate balance between caution and patience, authority and respect, could easily be lost. But today he saw the first signs of a bond forming, a bond built on care, vigilance, and understanding. Elinor had shown that she could adapt, that she could learn, and that she could respect both the power and the intelligence of the stallion. The sun climbed higher, warming the courtyard fully. Elinor continued to watch Thunder, her movements careful and deliberate. Roland remained near, vigilant but calm, observing every subtle shift in the horse's behavior. The quiet that had returned to the courtyard was different now. It was a quiet of mutual understanding, of trust beginning to grow, of patience rewarded. And in that moment, Sir Roland felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The tension, the near alarm, and the strictness of his warnings had all led to this, a moment where caution met understanding, where patience met respect, and where trust had begun to take root between horse, guard, and young noblewoman. The morning had fully grown into day, and the castle courtyard was bathed in a gentle, golden light. Shadows stretched long across the cobblestones, and the warmth of the sun made the stone walls glow with a soft radiance. The air smelled faintly of hay, horse sweat, and fresh straw, a smell that was strangely comforting to Sir Roland. It reminded him of years spent caring for horses, of long hours spent training them, and of the quiet satisfaction that came from seeing a spirited horse respond to patience and kindness. Thunder stood calmly in his stall, nostrils flaring gently as he watched Lady Elinor. The young noblewoman had spent the morning learning, adjusting her movements, and listening to the careful guidance of Sir Roland. Now, there was a subtle ease in the way she approached the horse, a quiet confidence that came from understanding rather than impatience. She extended her hand slowly, letting the stallion choose how close he wanted to be. He sniffed it once, twice, and then nuzzled it gently. Elinor smiled, her face lighting up with delight, feeling the first real connection between herself and the magnificent animal. Sir Roland observed quietly from a few steps away, arms crossed loosely as he studied the interaction. His sharp eyes missed nothing: the tilt of Thunder's ears, the soft movement of his tail, the way he shifted his weight with caution and curiosity. Roland allowed himself a small nod of approval. The young woman had followed his guidance perfectly. She had shown patience, respect, and an awareness that was rare for someone unfamiliar with horses. The tense morning had given way to a moment of harmony, one that he knew would not last forever, but which could be built upon if handled correctly. "You have done well today," Sir Roland said quietly, walking closer. Elinor looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I could not have done this without your guidance," she replied sincerely. "I am grateful that you were here to warn me earlier. I understand now why patience is so important." Roland's lips curved in a small, approving smile. "Patience is the foundation for trust," he said. "Not just with horses, but with any living creature. Thunder has allowed you to come close because he senses that you are calm and respectful. That is a gift, and it must be valued." Elinor glanced at the stallion again, running her hand lightly along his mane. Thunder shivered slightly at first, then relaxed, leaning into her gentle touch. "He seems to understand me," she murmured. "I think he knows I mean no harm." "Yes," Roland said, his tone softening. "Horses are keenly aware of intentions. They feel whether someone is calm, respectful, or careless. They respond to patience, not to force or hasty actions. That is why it is so important to move slowly, observe carefully, and let them guide the interaction." Elinor smiled, understanding deepening in her eyes. "I will remember that," she said. "Not just with him, but with everything I do. Today has been a lesson, and I am grateful for it." Roland nodded silently, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The tension of the morning, the frustration he had felt when he nearly lost patience, had led to this, an understanding, a bond forming and trust beginning to take root. He could see that Eleanor had learned not only to respect Thunder, but also to respect the rules and boundaries necessary for safety and harmony. For several moments, the courtyard was filled with a gentle quiet, broken only by the soft shuffle of straw beneath Thunder's hooves and the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. Birds chirped in the nearby trees, and the sun's warmth made the air feel comforting rather than tense. Eleanor continued to observe Thunder carefully, speaking softly to him in gentle tones that only added to the calm atmosphere. Roland watched silently, knowing that this was a delicate moment, one that could deepen into trust or falter if handled carelessly. "You have a natural ability with horses," Roland said finally, breaking the silence. Eleanor looked up at him, surprised. "Ability?" she repeated softly. "I didn't think I had any." "Yes," he said firmly. "You have patience, attentiveness, and a calm presence. Those qualities matter more than experience when it comes to building trust with a horse. Many people with years of experience fail because they lack these qualities. You have them naturally." Eleanor felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That means a lot. I want to learn more to understand him better and to earn his trust completely." Roland nodded approvingly. "Then you will continue to watch, to learn, and to move carefully. Trust is earned over time, not demanded. Thunder will respond in his own time, and when he does, it will be genuine. That is the reward for patience and care." The young woman extended her hand once more, letting the stallion nuzzle it gently. Thunder's breathing was slow, steady, and calm now. The tension of earlier had completely vanished, replaced by a tentative trust. Eleanor's smile grew wider, her eyes sparkling with delight. "He's letting me," she whispered. "He trusts me now." "Yes," Roland said, his voice calm but filled with approval. "He does. That trust is precious. Protect it, and you will find that he responds with loyalty and calmness. The bond between horse and human is built on patience, respect, and understanding. Today, you have taken the first important steps." Eleanor looked up at Roland, gratitude and admiration shining in her eyes. "I will remember everything you have taught me," she said softly. "I will not forget the importance of patience and respect." Roland allowed a small smile to tug at the corners of his lips. "Good," he said. "That is all I ask. Remember, even when the initial tension fades, vigilance and care are always necessary. That is part of the responsibility of caring for a horse, and it is also a lesson in understanding people and the world around you." Eleanor nodded, glancing at Thunder, who now rested his head lightly near her shoulder, breathing slowly and comfortably. The young noblewoman felt a deep sense of connection with the horse, one that had grown from careful observation, gentle movement, and respect for the animal's instincts. It was a bond that could not be rushed, forced, or demanded. It could only be earned, and she had taken the first steps with patience and understanding. Roland watched quietly, silently approving the gentle connection forming. He could see that the young woman had learned quickly and adapted well. Her presence was calm, her movements measured, and her energy reassuring rather than overwhelming. These were exactly the qualities needed for Thunder to continue trusting and responding positively. "You will do well with him," Roland said quietly, almost to himself, though Eleanor heard him. "He responds to those who show care and patience. You have shown both today, and that is why he trusts you now." Eleanor smiled softly. "I am grateful for your guidance," she said. "Without your warnings and instructions, I might have frightened him, and I would have regretted it. Thank you for teaching me how to be careful and patient." Roland nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "You have learned quickly," he said. "That is a gift. Remember it and continue to approach him with care. That will build a strong and lasting bond, one based on mutual trust and respect." For a long while, the three of them, the young noblewoman, the stallion, and the guard, remained in quiet companionship. The morning light grew warmer, casting long shadows across the courtyard and illuminating the chestnut coat of Thunder, making it gleam like polished wood. Alina continued to move slowly, speak softly, and observe the horse with care, while Roland maintained his watchful presence, ever alert to the slightest sign of distress but confident that the situation had reached a point of safety and calm. Eventually, Alina rose from her kneeling position, smiling at Roland. "I think I understand now," she said softly. "It is not just about touching or seeing the horse. It is about understanding, respect, and patience. That is the lesson I will take from today." "Yes," Roland said quietly. "That is the lesson. Respect, patience, and observation. Those are the keys to understanding not only horses but many things in life. You have learned quickly and you have done well." Thunder shifted slightly, moving closer to Alina once more, nuzzling her gently in a gesture of trust. She smiled, running her hand along his neck carefully, and Roland allowed himself a small, satisfied nod. The tension of the morning had fully disappeared. What had begun with uncertainty, caution, and near alarm had transformed into trust, understanding, and calm. As the sun rose higher, the courtyard became filled with the sounds of daily activity, servants moving about, distant laughter echoing from the castle halls, and the soft clip-clop of hooves as other horses were brought out of their stalls. Yet within the space around Thunder and Alina, there remained a quiet peace, a sense of harmony that had been carefully earned through vigilance, patience, and respect. Sir Roland stepped back slightly, giving Alina space, yet remained near, ready to intervene if necessary but confident that the young woman had learned the lessons of the morning well. He watched as she continued to interact with Thunder, calm, patient, and fully aware of the responsibility she now carried in earning and maintaining the horse's trust. For Roland, the morning had been a reminder of why vigilance, patience, and careful guidance mattered so much. For Alina, it had been a lesson in respect, observation, and understanding. And for Thunder, it had been a day of gentle reassurance, learning to trust a new presence in his life without fear. Together, the three formed a quiet harmony, a guard, a young noblewoman, and a spirited stallion, each learning from the other, each contributing to a moment of peace and understanding that would last long after the morning sun had climbed high into the sky.